Let's get to our class. So welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. Welcome to the Tuesday Nighters. Welcome to the book club. Welcome to the suggestion box. This is the 111th book club that we've had together. I can't tell you how many Tuesday nights. I just have never captured that, but I know it's more than 5.5 years of Tuesday nights together. Suggestion boxes. This is our 36th suggestion box. So we're well into a year. Tonight's class, as I've said, is 1 Corinthians 13, and I so appreciate that suggestion. It sometimes these come in the middle of a week. So as we're having a class, someone will text me and say, hey, why don't we push this one in coming off of Moroni 7 as it happened last week? So thank you for your suggestions. All right, let's get to it. And I'm going to share with you how this, before it unfolds, how it unfolded. But to tell you a little bit about the chapter that you just read, it's 1 Corinthians 13. It's one chapter. It's only 13 verses. It's only 270 words. One of our smaller assignments that we've had in our 36 weeks of suggestion box. So I hope you enjoyed the respite as far as reading, but I don't think there was any rest from the depth of this chapter. It was fabulous. So in reading it from my perspective, it came to me differently this time for Tuesday night. So I tried to capture that and give a little bit more general, what I felt was the connection. And I hope this helps you, but I also hope it helps kickstart our conversation. So let's go through my notes that I made on a couple different slides. I think it's important to look at the key to even understanding, comprehending 1 Corinthians 13. And I think that approach is the same approach that we would take to understanding Jesus' overall message. And truly what I believe is the foundation of his gospel. Whether you call his gospel his message, whether you call his gospel the Church of Jesus Christ, however you get there, I'm comfortable with. But I believe part of that foundation is found in this specific chapter. It requires us, in order to tie together, it requires us, if you will, to return to and refocus on one of Jesus' primary points. And I did it 3 different ways with the same message in each one of these. I believe the key component to the message of Jesus Christ, in general speak, is cause versus conduct, reason versus result, purpose versus performance. What I do believe is Jesus supported his Father's lesson that he had spoken to Samuel the prophet about why he himself had chosen David versus the handsome, tall, strapling brothers who were paraded out in front of Samuel. And this is what the Lord said to Samuel as he was deciding who would stand in a leadership role as king of Israel. God said this, "The Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Too often our limited decisions or verdicts concerning different people might have to do with ethnicity, culture, religion, age, color, gender, and even their actions, or probably more accurately, their perceived actions or our perceptions of those actions based upon ethnicity, culture, religion, age, color, gender, all of that. Jesus taught how God saw and sees each one of us with an eye on our intentions that drive our behaviors. We see the behaviors. And because we lack that insight, we have to relinquish our unfounded prejudgments. These deductions can be grounded in a dangerous mix, at least to my way of seeing things, a dangerous mix of ignorance, arrogance, and fear. Now, just as it was with Samuel, we believe ourselves to be right. based upon what we see, because that's all we have. But God already told Samuel, and God is telling us that we see incorrectly. So our conclusions can be just that, incorrect. So let's jump in and see where the correlation is in this chapter, at least again, to what I thought it was. In the first 3 verses, we are immediately thrust into Jesus' message of love. Whether we caught that or not, we're thrust into it. And I think it happens through a brilliant written presentation by Paul the Apostle, utilizing the absolute perfect pronoun I. His non-offensive use of I prevents us from posturing in some defensive way. And it eliminates any reason for us to resist the message. So the result is we willingly accept what we think is his confessional. So consider a change in pronouns. Consider if he said this: should you prophesy having no love of God, we may not receive it so open-mindedly. But he said it this way: though I have the gift of prophecy, and he goes on to say, and the gift of understanding, he goes on, and have not charity. Because he used I see his fault easily. I might have resisted had he pointed his finger at me. So this is much more palatable, much easier to digest, and we receive the message. His first couple sentences were somewhat like this: although I might seem to speak for God, understand God, and represent God, if I don't do this with God's love as my motivation, I'm nothing, and I have nothing. Although I give to those in need, although I sacrifice for other people, but I don't carry God's love, it's all for naught. That's how he presented it. And that's why we lean in on those first 3 verses, almost like the hook is baited and we're biting for that hook. The next 4 to 8 verses, the next 5 verses involve a shift to definitions and descriptions to the desirable qualities of God's love. You may have found some of your favorite verses in that 5-verse span from 4 to 8. And the key of this is he's comparing God's love and the permanency of that to everything else being temporary. So he's making the point that this remains. Then he goes to 9, 10, 11, and 12. And again, from my perception, these appear to be intended to offer a more personal challenge to us. Now, again, going back to what I started with a couple slides ago, given our limited ability to see as God sees, he calls us to simply trust and obey what he's saying. And that's what faith is. At some point, I've always said this, at some point, it's not going to connect. We're going to have to step out on faith at some point. All the evidence is almost there, but it comes short. So how do we get there? We got to trust and obey the word. And we have at that point but one option: embrace the faith to believe that all that is said in these 13 verses are God's truths. And so that's why that 13th verse is there. Everything leading up to that 13th verse, which states in essence that all of this, so that we might understand that only 3 things really matter. And these 3 things that really matter define us. And these three things that really matter remain with us. Remember, I spoke of love's permanency. And finally, these 3 things carry us spiritually: faith, hope, charity. And he makes the statement that we might understand, but it's charity that reigns supreme. Love wins out. And why is that so important? Because it had said in 1 John simply this: God is love. And this is the message of Jesus Christ, love. Okay,